American presidents were people like you and like me, or at least that's how the founders intended them to be. Hi, my name's Teddy Ebby. Welcome back to my recurring segment where we're talking about the nicknames of the US presidents from the past. Last time we talked about the three most popular positive nicknames of Ulysses S. Grant. Grant is one of the most well-known generals from the US Civil War on the Union side of things, and it's easy to see how that spunk could have gotten him into the White House. But he had some trouble transitioning from general to politician. And so today we're going to talk about his three most popular negative nicknames, insults that people reserve specifically to call him. Now, the number of Grant's negative nicknames are pretty small, but they are blunt and sticky. They clung to him throughout the entirety of his presidency and into his legacy afterwards. So without further ado, we're going to talk about negative nickname number one, where he was often called Grant the Butcher or the Butcher President.
Oh, he's a butcher.
It is no surprise that Grant would have a nickname like this, being one of the Union's top generals in the Civil War that ended not years prior to his presidency. This negative nickname really crystallized during the Civil War after the battles of Shiloh and Cold Harbor and the extreme casualties of those fights. These were both two incredibly hard-won Union victories. And his critics argued that there was a supreme lack of strategy on Grant's part. Although the Union won those respective battles and furthered their cause in those particular theaters of the war, the casualties on the Union side were immense. And as the commanding general, the buck stopped at Grant. Many saw Grant as just feeding men into the meat grinder in an endless pursuit of victory no matter the cost.
But if you insist upon coming, okay then, welcome to the meat grinder.
Many were terrified of the man, seeing him as a butcher who cared less about human life than about ending the war on his terms. Now, I will point out, this negative nickname is slightly unfair. Grant did have a strategy in this aspect of keeping the Confederacy under constant pressure so they couldn't recover, unlike the terrible failures of those commanding generals before him who had let the Confederacy recoup, retreat, and live to fight another day and harry the Union's troops even more. Not only that, Grant was at an incredible disadvantage here, fighting on the South's home turf and fighting in one of the last line infantry wars, large-scale wars, that the United States would fight until the successive world wars. Advances in artillery, musketry, and even rifling made the death toll of the Civil War terrible, even in comparison to wars the US had fought in just previously. But even though the label really misunderstands Grant, it stuck, and the Butcher entered the White House. And what came along with him? But negative nickname number two, an insult that dogged him through his military and then political career, where they referred to Grant as the drunk or the drunkard president. Yes, Grant did have a pretty serious drinking problem, but not in the way that you might think. He wasn't a Winston Churchill drinking brandy every single day. Grant's problem was with binge drinking. Grant had served in the military one time before the Civil War, and when stationed in lonely areas, he had a reputation for getting blasted.
Julian! I don't know where I felt like I get a little drink around here, do you, bud?
Not only that, but he had a notably low tolerance, so even a few drinks would get the man blackout. After a string of deployments to the western frontier of the United States, where Grant was far away from his family and really anybody, and a series of these negative drinking incidents causing his reputation to be tied up with being a lightweight drunkard relying on the drink, Grant actually resigned the military in 1854. A little less than a decade later, when Grant threw himself back into the military for the Civil War, he maintained some sobriety. He relied heavily on his aide-de-camp and good friend, John Rawlins, to help encourage him to remain sober despite the harrowing experience of being a commanding general in one of the most bloody conflicts the United States has ever been involved in. However, there were some notable instances where he did relapse, particularly in 1863, though President Lincoln himself, when Grant's drinking was brought to his attention, said, "I can't spare the man." recognizing that despite his faults, Grant was incredibly important to the war effort. Grant was aware just how much of an issue this was for him and joined several temperance movements to try to stay true to the fight for sobriety. But the illness of addiction would follow him for the rest of his life, and even into the White House as he became the president. During peacetime, he smoked 8 to 9 cigars a day, but it was reported that during the Civil War, he smoked upwards of 20. These addictions would compound upon one another, with us now knowing today that both cigars and alcohol contribute towards certain mouth and oral cancer. And after he was diagnosed with throat cancer in 1884, it was only a year later in 1885 when he died. And that disease of addiction would really weaken him in the White House when it came to negative nickname number 3, where he was referred to as Corrupt Grant, or the Corrupt President. You see, Grant was always going to be on the back foot as he entered the presidency. His predecessor, Andrew Johnson, had been the first president to be impeached and spent the remainder of his presidency as a lame duck president, unable to get anything done, get anything pushed through Congress. As Johnson sat, the political schemers and true corrupt politicians looked to the next election with bated breath. They saw Grant, a man with little political experience, about to be elected to the highest office in the nation, and a man that they could take advantage of to make themselves rich. Grant's failing here was that he trusted people too readily, and he would often appoint personal friends and military comrades to positions that he thought they would be valuable in, when in all actuality, they would stab him in the back.
My brothers, they betrayed me.
Whiskey Ring, the Indian Ring, the original Black Friday scandal were all issues of corruption that dogged Grant's presidency and made him look less like somebody who just didn't know how to stop it and more like someone who was actively complicit in the most blatant government corruption.
And very soon we'll see how complicit this creep is in all of the corruption and all the horror that's going on.
What's worse is because of Grant's deep-seated loyalty to some of these friends, he was very slow to punish or even remove them from office. Sometimes he even defended them, and it was easy to see how many would accuse the then-sitting president of cronyism. While his administration is widely seen as one of the most blatantly corrupt in U.S. presidential history, most historians agree that Grant was not complicit in the corruption, just ignorant of how to get it to stop. And like so many other military presidents of the U.S. presidential past, Grant served his 2 terms and then left, and the electorate chose instead someone with a little bit more political experience, the 19th President of the United States, Rutherford B. Hayes. My name's Ted Yebby. These have been Ulysses S. Grant's 3 most popular negative nicknames. Join me next time when we talk about Rutherford B. Hayes' 3 most popular positive nicknames.